Hi, welcome to the Not Only Carrots cooking show. I'm Leah.
I'm Eden. And I'm Tamer.
And today we'll be baking for you the bread, which also doubles as a pizza base, from page 12 of my brand new cookbook, No, We Don't Only Eat Carrots, Plant-Based Food for Humans. This recipe can be prepared conventionally in a bowl on the bench or also in the Thermomix. So to begin with, the girls are going to prepare it conventionally and I will show you the alternative afterwards. To start off with, we have 4 cups of stoneground whole wheat flour and we'll add to that gluten flour. Gluten flour is the protein out of the wheat grain and acts as a binder for your bread. You're going to put it in? If you forget to add the gluten flour, if you're using stoneground whole wheat flour, it can actually turn your bread into quite a cakey texture and it doesn't hold together very well, especially if you toast it, it tends to want to fall apart. We're going to add to that a teaspoon of salt for some flavour. There we go. There you are. And then our bread needs to rise, so we'll add 2 teaspoons of yeast. 1, 2. And then the yeast has to grow, so we're going to feed it 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, you can use an alternative to white sugar if you prefer not to use the white sugar, although the yeast eats it, so it's not necessarily that you're eating the sugar as such. I have friends who use rapadura, which is evaporated cane juice. You can also use honey if you're a vegetarian, rice syrup and so on. So they're all alternatives. Stir that through, Eden, that's great. In the recipe book, it is a multi-grain bread mix, but I actually have run out of my multi-grain mix. You can purchase it from a bulk food store, but I do have the flax seeds, which are linseeds in Australia, and we'll continue to add those. So we'll add 1/4 cup of the flax seeds. Whoa, we're missing the bowl. Whoops. There we go. Stir that in, and we'll also add in 1 tablespoon of soy lecithin. What's soy lecithin? Soy lecithin is from soybeans and it adds extra nutrients to our bread. Now, one of the great things about bread recipes is the fact that you can create whatever flavour you want. If you don't like seedy, nutty bread, you can leave out the flax seeds, you can leave out the lecithin and so on. You can also reduce your gluten flour down to a couple of tablespoons, but I actually really like the texture of the extra gluten flour, but once again, you can play with it and find a flavour and a texture that you prefer. All right, is that all stirred through, Eden? We've got to make sure it's really well combined. Tamar, give her a hand now. We'll swap over. You can come back to it in a minute. And we'll be adding along to our bread mix now 1/4 cup of rice bran oil and also 1.5 cups of water. You want to do the oil? Okay, hold it right over the top, all the way over so that it doesn't fall on the edge. Can you count for me? Can you do it in Spanish?
1, 2,
Over that way.
3, 4.
All right. Oh, we got you. Are you going in the oven? Rub it in, you'll be nice and crispy. Okay. Now we will add in our water. We'll need 1.5 cups of water approximately. Now, with bread, depending on where you live, we are in hot Queensland and it's very humid here. So we often don't need as much water as other countries that are drier. But the thing with bread is it's one of those things you've got to, especially with the conventional version, you've got to just feel it as you go. And if you do find it's too dry, it's not holding together properly, add extra water, but only say a tablespoon at a time because it gets wet very fast. How's that going?
Can we squash it with our hands?
Yep, we'll just, you're at elbow height, you might have to move over a bit. All right, Tamar, swash that a little, pull it off the spoon there. All right,
Put it on
well, in a minute, we'll squish it together first.
together.
You got to grab it from the bottom, scoop it all over. And that's one of the tricks with making your own bread is don't leave any of that nice flour at the bottom. You've got to scoop it all around. Here, we'll just shift this. Hold on. Okay, I think we need a bit more water. Here we are. Okay, you girls stir that through and then I'm going to come back to you in a minute, okay? All right, now we'll show you the Thermomix procedure. Obviously this works in the brand new Thermomixes as well, but I didn't have a need for a bigger bowl, so I stuck with the TM31. So we will turn our Thermomix on, and it's 480 grams of stone ground whole wheat flour, which I will now weigh. Hit those scales. What's going on over there? What's going on?
You're making me messy. That's what happened.
Are you sure she's making you messy, or are you making her messy? All right. It's the same, just the same recipe. So we'll add in a teaspoon of salt. Oi, you're stealing my limelight. Shh. Right, quarter of a cup of gluten flour. We've got quarter of a cup of flax seeds. And yeast, 2 teaspoons. Pop them in. Don't ever be tempted to put more yeast because you think it's not enough, because those little bugs grow big very fast.
Mummy, look.
Wow. All right, well, you can tip it onto the bench now, and
There's still flour.
maybe you can make something Aussie for me. Who can make something Aussie for me?
A kangaroo.
You make a kangaroo. What are you going to make, Molly?
I'll make a platypus.
A koala. All right.
I'll make echidna.
Couple tablespoons of your sugar.
I need a bit.
What else have we got?
Wait, put
And we will add in our quarter cup of rice bran oil.
me, Mummy. It's a bit sticky.
It's a bit sticky. Do you need a little bit extra flour? You don't want
Echidna.
your echidna. Oh, here, see if he'll be okay if we do that. You don't want a sticky dough. It's got to be, it needs to hold together and be soft but not sticky. So it's a bit of a mission to figure it out initially.
I had to squish my echidna. Now I have to make it.
Okay, and we'll put in our soy lecithin as well, 1 tablespoon. And now in the Thermomix, it's roughly 370 grams of water, but once again, it's not a perfect science. So you have to just play around. If you have to add a little extra, you have to add a little extra. It's the way it goes. 340. Okay, let's get that lid on. Thermomix is quite speedy. What we want to do, we are going to lock off our lid and bring the speed up to 5 for 5 seconds to combine all of those dough ingredients. Very good. And now we will knead it for 3.5 seconds, 3.5 minutes. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I'm reading upside down. Here we go. 3.5 minutes. Knead cycle. And take your lid off. It can stay on, but it bounces around and makes a lot of noise. I'll show you how to knead the bread as soon as the Thermomix is quiet again. Okay. Turn your Thermomix off when you hear the lovely little singing noise. Your bread is ready. Your bread is ready. Okay, here we go. Now, this bread, I know this dough is good because, here, number 1, I can just lift it out like that. Number 2, if you take a look at this dough,
I need a bit more.
if I poke it, it wants to spring back a little bit. If I poke my finger in it and it just stays in, it's not ready. But that it's called a bounce back, and it bounces back.
Mine doesn't bounce.
Yeah, but you're poking it into the middle of the thing. What do you expect? Just a little on the outside, and it wants to bounce back.
Comes back.
And it's nice and soft. So that is our Thermomix dough. Now I want to show you how to knead the bread. When I had Tamar as a little baby, I didn't have one of these, and you don't have to have one. You can do this on your own in your kitchen, and if you get the kids involved, by the time they've finished playing with it, it's like it's been kneaded anyway. So I want to teach you how to do it. What you do is grab a little handful. Shh. No, you need to be quiet now and listen. Come on, we're going to teach the people how to knead. Look, you sprinkle a little bit of flour on the bench. Now what we need to do is we're actually trying to stretch the gluten fibres. If you can see this, I'm stretching that and it's just falling apart, okay? But when you knead it, the gluten fibres actually stretch and then it gets to the point where it doesn't break easily. So in order to do that, use the heel of your palm and press down and forward, and then fold that piece of bread or dough back onto itself and then twist your bread around. And once again, the heel of your hands, press and forward and down and then turn. And then you actually can get quite a nice motion like this. Press, fold. So press, fold, spin, press, fold, spin. Can you do it, Eden? Who's the fastest? does. Oh, I've got a bit of competition over there. And you can actually get quite a motion going. Now, depending on how hard you're pushing down the bread, will depend on how long you need to knead it for. Usually about 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you're a bit of a weakling. There is an alternative way to knead bread, which is kind of random but pretty cool. You can grab it and whack your bench like that, and it actually works really well. Don't whack your children though. But it is very noisy and I don't really like doing it. But once again, test your dough when you're done if you're not too sure. Ready? And by poking it, see you're getting the bounce back? I don't know, can you see that? The bounce back? It's bouncing back, that's ready. So because of the girls playing with it, it's nice and ready to go. Once you make this dough, you then need to rise the dough, which allows the yeast to grow and helps to create the yeasty, bready flavour that we all love. So when your dough is ready, so I'll take this Thermomix dough as we had before. We take that, cover it with some cling wrap.
Glad wrap, actually.
Or glad wrap. Cover it up. Cover it up. Now, you don't need to put it over too tightly because your dough will actually rise and grow as it rises. When the dough has doubled in size, it's ready to be knocked down and you can shape it into your loaf or your pizza bases. You can also cover it with a warm, wet tea towel as well if you don't have any cling wrap, which is fine. Now, you'll need to rise it in a warm place. You can put it into your oven, preheat your oven to about 50 degrees Celsius, turn the oven off so it's not cooking the bread, and then you can rise in the oven if it's a cold day. You can also, alternatively, on a warm day, you can actually rise your bread in your car. If you shut the car up in the sun, it acts like an oven. You can rise it on the lawn like I did today. You can rise it anywhere warm as long as it's not actually cooking that dough, it'll work really well. If you don't have the time to rise your bread on the one day and cook it, you can choose to do one of your rises on the bench and your second rise in the fridge. It can take anywhere between 12 and 16 hours to get a full rise if you are actually doing that cold rise in the fridge. By rising for the 16 hours in the fridge, you'll actually find your bread nutritionally better and the zinc is more absorbable for your body. All right, so let's have a look at what the dough looks like once it has risen. This will take roughly an hour. Okay, so you get the you get the fun job once it's risen. As you can see, same loaf. So you can see a significant difference in size. Okay, this one's full. Oh, it smells so good. All right, who wants to punch it? Okay.
Ooh, that's wet.
So, as the recipe says in the book, you can make pizza bases or bread. Now, if you're making pizza bases, this is what you do. Now, this is where you can help me. You divide your dough into 3 equal parts. Just a minute, hold your horses. Okay, and then we've got enough. Here we go. Now, you're not actually trying to add flour to your dough, it's just so it doesn't stick. Your pizza base doesn't have to be round because you might have a square or rectangular or triangular oven tray. Unlikely, but possible. You can spread. That doesn't look very like a pizza base. What is that? That's terrible. I want a pizza base. No, make a pizza base. Here we go. Come on, make a pizza base. So you can spread with your hands. If you've got a rolling pin, you can just roll it. I actually just moved and I cannot find mine anywhere. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I'm sure I've got one somewhere. Oh, there it is. Ha ha. All right. Well, are you doing a pizza base now too? Okay. So usually with a pizza base, you start with a circle. Stop. And we go. Well, you start with a ball like that, a ball, and then press it down. There's your circle to start with. And you start in the middle and roll out.
Hey, you're flamming mine.
Oh, you better get it out of the way. Here we go. Beep, beep. You got to move out of the way.
I need to roll it now.
And just roll and roll and roll. Anyway, that's how you make a pizza base. Eventually get to a nice circle. And if you're wanting to do that, grab a fork and this will go onto a lined baking dish or baking tray. And then for your first rise, you actually need to poke holes all over your base like that because that will prevent it rising too much. Otherwise, you end up with a base, so mega base. So, hey, if you like that, do that. But if not, poke holes in it, leave it, And that will then rise the same as the bread dough did before, but that will rise on your trays. So make sure you put it on your trays first for that one. This is for the second rise, okay, with your pizza base. Now we're going to be finished with pizza bases now. We're going to put them all together again. Can you guys squish them back together again for me? Here we go. So you have your dough, you've punched it down. This is now the second process. Just start from the corner and I just roll it in, twist it onto itself, and you're going to press from the middle out. And the idea is you want to stretch it to the size of your bread tin. I'll show you a loaf I made earlier so you can get an idea of what I'm meaning. Okay, so here's one from before. This is hot, so don't hurt yourselves. I'm going to try and from the middle out, rolling, 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 and pressing. You press down, roll out, roll out, roll out until you end up with a nice roll like this.
Can I hold it?
No. And we'll make sure it'll fit our tin. And this is one we prepared earlier. And I will reuse that baking paper to line it, pop it in the top like this.
Ow.
And then you can leave it to have its second rise. And when you're rising once again, as we mentioned earlier, with your other bread dough, it has to double in size. Same now, again, it has to double in size. So this bread, as you can see, this came from the same roll. So you can see it's about halfway full in the tin. It's going to rise maybe an inch above the top, roughly. And once it's at that level, you want to put it into your oven. You want to preheat to 200 degrees fan forced and put it roughly in the middle, and you may find it halfway through your baking. Turn your tin around halfway. That way you'll get an even bake on both ends of the roll. Now, ways to check if the bread's actually cooked, because sometimes your bread can trick you. If your oven is too hot, and every oven is a little different, so you're going to have a play with those temperatures, it can look cooked and not be cooked. But you have to listen for a hollow sound. So if I tap the end of it, sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Is it supposed
Sounds
to be
like
hollow?
Yeah, it has a hollow sound, like that. That is a cooked loaf of bread, and that will be really nice. When I first started cooking, I would have these beautiful loaves of bread, and you cut it open, and it was really doughy and really disappointing. But if it has a hollow sound, it's good. Okay, so I have lots of bread making tips in the cookbook, a whole page worth. I love making bread. I've made it now for over 10 years. My mother-in-law got me into it, and her mother gave me bread tins, and then I bought more bread tins from the local kitchen shop, and I just really love doing it. It's a great way to get away from your refined grains, and I really encourage you to have a try. Even if you don't have a Thermomix, don't worry, just do it on the bench, have a go at home. And I had a friend once, a guy who came and kneaded it, and because he was so strong with his kneading, he kneaded it in 5 minutes flat. So hey, those guys out there, you're not out of bread making, you can do it too. We're so grateful that you tuned in today for our show. We want to thank you. Thank you for Eden and Tamar as well for coming along to have fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for making your echidna. And what was yours, koala?
It was so funny. It had a smiley face.
A smiley face. So thank you from Australia, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.